Hello, my beautiful people. How's it going? So, again, today, this is not a new topic. Like I say with a lot of my shows, I'm just trying to get really clear on how I want to talk about them. So, I hope I did a good job with this one. This is take two because it's really important for me to be clear because I feel like again, lots of issues because I look at them from so many different perspectives and they've been at different stages of my life. It's not really black or white, these different things. Um, so what I would like to say in this one, mindset surrounding focusing on people in general and what that means. Again, a lot of this stuff is like when you're going through it, it's kind of difficult to explain because you don't really when I was going through this it didn't really make sense. Okay, this is why I have a problem explaining it. Okay, so when I've talked about before as far as focusing on externally of ourselves, right, and the self-worth and that whole can of worms, this is just another part of it. Okay, it's like, well, how do you not focus on people and what do you mean? What I mean is that because they make up so much a part of our lives, right? And some of us, like the seeking of approval, we don't even know that we're seeking approval. But from the point of our parents or whoever's raising you, telling us no. So from that whole authoritarian and if you didn't listen and that sort of stuff, right? I'm not going to get into it. So what I mean is it doesn't mean don't care about people. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means how much of our energy and how much of our focus in our everyday lives that we are putting on that. Okay, so I know this is different depending on each stage of our life. Maybe it gets less and less with some people with age. I feel like that's what it was for me, and I will give you a personal example later. So, while specifically for me, right, I've always cared really deeply for people in my relationships, right, romantic, platonic, whatever it is, but mostly the platonic ones. I feel like it's not that it was one-sided, it was always like I always took it so deep and I was always the one efforting, and the effort could just be like me, friends that had moved away, the couple of friends that I had that moved, and my dad would go and see them, and I was the one who was always doing that. I don't know that any of them came to see me. They maybe did once. um, since I don't know to say, I guess I do all the love languages. I've never even read that book, The Five Love Languages. So I like to do words, and this has evolved more as an adult, right? Because I never even used to say I love you. It's so embarrassing, even I feel it, right? The lack of social skills. So words, acts of service, gifts, touch, and there's something else that I can never remember. It must not be that important. I don't know, but for some reason. Okay, so all of those, I think it's time. So all of them, basically, I do, right? And not everybody does that. And not everybody also feels that a lot of those things, like you could feel like, okay, it's gifts, but like to give to somebody is like your act, but like that doesn't, they're not into it. They might not feel like, oh, because you got me a gift, like that means you love me. Like again, I just, different people are different. Okay, so I was always that, the caring, the deeply, the going out of my way, but to me it wasn't going out of my way, right? I'm just doing it, and I never expected anything back. So I do blame myself for a lot of this, not like I'm crying and just hating myself, but just blaming, like this has just kind of been it's taken so long for me to learn it. Now I just look back at it like I feel like it's at my own detriment or caused my own pain because it's just left me feeling like, am I the only one who is like this? And no, I haven't met millions of people or whatever more. I've met a lot of people and different kinds of people, and there are in California different people here than other places that I've lived in the Midwest and the East Coast. Sorry, I keep saying that there are different types of people everywhere. And even those people who were nice, I still don't know that it was to the level of or degree like that they efforted very much, but they were nice people, right? So I'm not blaming them. I just have realized what type of person I am. And I guess, and I've thought, okay, I guess I'm kind of rare in that way because, again, I'd have to really think hard about people who have either reciprocated um, on the many levels or whatever. I'm sure that they were appreciative and I'm not blaming them. Okay. So, in me realizing this into my early 40s, I don't know what it is, like 5 or 6 years back, just kind of realizing these different things, and not to say that it's worth it, like to not have those people or whatever in my lives. I'm just moving forward in anybody else, like just paying attention to my energy a lot more. And that's pretty difficult since this is my nature, right? No matter how much I say, like, oh, this is easy and I got this, it's just, guys, goes along with boundary setting too. But I definitely don't expect anything back, in whatever I give of myself. So this also I might describe as pain. I have cried through some of them, but some relationships are really short lived. So I really just try to embrace whatever moment that you have, even if something fleeting for like 5 minutes or one conversation or whatever it is, when you pick up on it that, you like somebody right away. And things do last. I like to keep a, there are things, okay, there are relationships too that last. And then there are also people that return into our lives. And that has been a pleasant surprise, right? And then it continues on with maybe a deeper level of relationship. So that's nice to know. But what I wanted to say also in this, I don't think I've talked about this part before, but it always sticks in my head that my dad said these things that his dad said, who I never met, my grandfather, is that he said in general when it comes to life, and he grew up in the country in West Virginia, his dad, is that uh, he never thought about much about people or friends because he ended up realizing that he said that they will disappoint you and that you are lucky if you can count the ones you have on one hand. And I totally agree with that. When I heard it the first time, it was almost like disappointing to hear, but I didn't learn it yet. Okay, so sometimes we hear these things from the elders or all these other people in history, these people advising us, giving us quotes or whatever, and certain things may not make sense, right? We don't understand them. They don't make sense to us. They don't resonate with us. We don't get it, right? And so, and then it comes to the disappointment too, that maybe you thought somebody was a true friend and maybe they weren't, or this whole risk in relationships, up and downs. So I totally agree with that. Um, you're lucky if you can count on one friend, the hand. I'm sorry. You're lucky if you can count on one hand the friends you have in life. So hold on to the ones that you do have and that you love. Okay, so another reason of this episode that kind of started it as a result of this journey and me learning this way, I still want to say, wow, this kind of can sound harsh, is not taking people in general so seriously, number one, okay? That's not harsh part. The harsh part is saying is that even your significant, okay? And I say that because even in true love relationships, they may be thinking the same thing too, right? Judging, looking at what you're doing, comparing, not only looking at what you're doing, looking at what you're not doing. Um, and then put that part in there if you actually, you live together. So That's why, I've come to my different conclusions about that, and living with just somebody, I can see the benefits, right, of living separately. And so that doesn't make sense for a lot of people, even when you're married or whatever it is. But if you really think about it, they can put their own shit and do their own things in another place, and you come together, and it still makes it really, what do they say? Our heart makes, distance makes the heart grow fonder, something like that. Absence. Anyway, one of those. So the focus, though, of culture, this is where I'll go back and explain, is that it's not even specific to getting approval. It's just that you're so consumed, right? What people are doing, thinking, how they're living their lives, what they're thinking about you. And so that can be all consuming. Instead of focusing on you, your passions, your hobbies, serving doesn't have to be religious. Like, you don't have to be religious to serve. Whatever cause you're doing and giving back, like, that's just a nice, generous, loving thing to do. Just like somebody saying, when I've worked in it's called the St. John's, it's an empowerment program here in Sacramento that I've been on and off again for like 8 years. And people have been like, oh, what church are you with? I'm all, no church. Like, I'm just here for this because I love, helping and doing and serving, right? But that's why, if you go listen to when I talk about the difference between organized religion and being spiritual, it explains it a little bit better there, because it's from a book that I read and I really liked it. So again, I'm going to repeat again and recap. It's okay to reflect, to look at others, in the way of dissecting and helping kind of analyze, look at yourself. And it's the same thing with significance. Think of it as we are all mirror images of each other. So, like, just looking at the things maybe you're irritated with, or what it is, like, why are you so irritated with that? Like, how does that, um, instead of judging, comparing, like I said, how can you be better? Like, what don't you like about that, like, situation? Like, how is that um, reflective, I guess, of you? I'll give you 2 examples. Okay. So one is, I remember that, because remember, again, if you don't know my very punk rock snobbish ways, which really I was in our culture, even thinking that we were more kick-ass than the next person because of the mindset, right? Snobbish in some ways like that, and just snobbish about a lot of, like, other things. For example, there was a lady that I worked at in the very first place I worked at, in a salon, and she was, not only she was super conservative and Christian, but she would always talk really bad about anybody who, like, let's just say, for example, right, tattoos, piercings, dress different, or whatever it is. And she would just be like, I just don't understand, blah blah blah. And that's how it was back in the day, right? To do anything different, because 2024 now, everybody, we're like a tattooed and colored hair culture. But back in the day, punk rock, anything and all that stuff that was obscure, like mohawks, was looked at as like, you're weird, right? You're weirdo. Like, you're doing something outside of the mainstream. Why do you want to look like that? You must have a lot of problems, right? So I would get mad at her, and I remember inside myself, right? Like, I want to say something. But then I would always walk back, and I remember leaving that break room, because that's where she was in, and I remember thinking, like, why do I even care what she thinks? Like, why? And that goes to that approval thing, right? Like, why would I care whether she likes that or not, or it's not her style, or that she's judging, you know? And I could be the same thing as judging her, right? By saying, oh, she's conservative Christian, this and that. All Christians are like that, right? That's me judging. And instead of, like, I don't know. She seemed like a nice person, and she did beautiful flower arrangements, but I never got a chance to get to know her, right? So again, sticking within the tribe, even though there weren't a lot of opportunities, right, to get to know. This was like a coworker person. That's example number one. Number two, so opportunity to look at yourself. And then, before I get lost in my sidetracks of a bunch of other things that I do in my episodes, I'm going to really, for real, close on this. Okay, the next example is, since I myself, I told you I love so deeply and I get really entrenched. That is the best way to describe it, in people's journeys and their stories. And I love human behavior and I love problem solving and I love loving and all this, right? All this stuff that we could say that's my stress, right? Like I enjoy it, but in a way, it's a stress. And I take on the energy of the issue, the drama. I become entrenched and I lose myself, almost like what can happen with love sometimes, right? It's too immersive, it's too much. This whole 24/7 thing that I grew up kind of thinking, I saw that, right, from my friend growing up, like that's what gives the worth, right? Gives me my worth or whatever. But that whole attachment based relationship or codependency, whatever you want to call it, right, is not healthy. That is my experience. That's my perspective, right? And I had to learn my way out of that while it sucked at the time. So, as a result of that, I've realized what it's done to me. And I've realized this is even in facials in the treatment room and kind of being like a therapist. Coaching people one on one is probably not a good idea for me. I mean, there's many different things involved in it, including following up with people and holding them accountable. So I really like the idea that those of you, if I resonate with you, right, that you can jump on here and go at your own pace. And if you have any other questions, I actually suggest you just starting with journaling or writing. And like I said, doesn't have to be anything crazy. Start with one line of journaling to yourself. Start with one or two questions. An example might be of the journaling might be, okay, today sucked because, and this is why. What could I have done to make it better? Right? Always weighing both sides, this problem solving for ourselves. It could be literally people, anything, like anything that is problematic for you. Okay, this is a stress relief. This will also cause free writing. You will just start writing, it will just start coming out. Okay, so these questions to yourself, and it's always, show me, bring me somebody to help me with this, show me how to be better in this area, what can I do, blah blah blah. I've been saying blah 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 in a lot of episodes lately. And I said I was going to close with that example, but since I am constantly, when I ask for help, it is given to me, okay? And I can give you more examples, even as time goes by, right? Because we are constantly learning. Those of us who pay attention, I'm constantly, right, trying to overcome things in myself. And I guess I just find fun approaches to it. So I'm going to tell you this really quick little thing today is that I have always wanted to learn how to do some of the Bollywood, East Indian Bollywood dancing that they do in a lot of films. Some of them are really cheesy. The music's really teachy. The music is really cheesy, but there is some really beautiful music. And even if I were just to learn to do it on a basic level, a lot of things in life just doing once and I'm all good and just learning it, just like sign language. Just wanted to do it on a very basic level. But I was thinking, oh, if I do that, I'm going to have to smile all the time like a goddamn cheerleader. And I'm sure I could do it, but I would be faking. And I don't want to do that. So on the ground today, when we were at school of where I am right now, temporarily working on the ground, I found there are multiple lessons and messages in this, right? On the ground, the girl I was walking with found a little homemade bracelet that had my name on it. It had grapes and it had a smiley face on it. So I looked at that from multiple perspectives, right? I looked at it. Number one, we both said that was weird. And that's really unique. And then also, since I had been talking about the whole dancing thing and the smiling thing, there was a smiley face on it, so I figured that was a message to myself. And then the clasp that was on it broke off of it, and it made me think in all my jewelry how that keeps coming off, and how I need to find a way to make it stay so that it doesn't keep falling off and my bracelets will break. And I could also apply that to other areas of where in my life the clasp not working, or things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and end on this. And again, like I always say, just take what resonates with you and dismiss the rest, or get rid of the rest. And hopefully this helped you in some sort of way. But basically, just another way to look at the idea and another perspective on not making it the focus in your life to always be worrying about what other people are doing, saying, and thinking. And like I said before, that will also affect the whole not comparing yourself. And by working on yourself, you will be less likely to do that. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in the next video.